All right, guys, we are back here again today with another iteration and episode of our off-season insight series, where we are diving into the off seasons of all the LTAN and LEC teams to get an idea of how their off-season went and how we ended up with the rosters we are going to be seeing in the 2025 season. Today, we have a very special guest. We are joined by Jungle Juice, who is going to be our representative from 100 Thieves. So obviously, first, I want to say thank you so much to him for taking his time to do this. How have you been doing, and are you ready to go for this 2025 season?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Super excited for this season. I think we saw it in the viewership as well, but 100 Thieves, like we climbed up the charts with how our roster performed last year. Obviously, complete underdog story. Totally blew people's expectations. Like I'm kind of I'm not normally a petty person, but I recall on Twitter, like there were some people saying your team's gonna finish seventh or eighth. Last place team, you guys don't care. And I had all of these like tweets bookmarked. And I think when we went to Worlds, it was just like so redeeming to see how the team performed by the end of the year. And I think even in terms of viewership, our team climbed the ranks comparatively to the other teams. So that was super exciting to see. I know we have some new faces with TSG coming into the mix, with Lion coming into the mix, and I know Moist recently announced their partnership with Shopify. So I think there's a ton to be interested about. And I'm just stoked to see this like roster run it back because it's one of the rosters that is super special to me because it was a complete like scrap project and like things just like gelled and clicked together when it needed to. So I hope the fans are excited too.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure they are. And like you said, last year was definitely a very, very crazy story. And obviously, we want to hear, more about how we got here and how we're getting ready to go in 2025. And at first, I want to start by, going a couple months back to Worlds, like you were talking about. Really crazy time. Obviously, I'm sure you would have liked for things to go a little bit better. Even that Cinderella story, you still never want it to end. But obviously, once things did end, you needed to start looking forward to the future and start looking forward towards 2025. So I'm just wondering, after your Worlds run was over, even though you were super excited, all these awesome things, where was your mind at heading into the beginning of the offseason? What were some of your like initial goals, initial approaches, and things like that to build off those successes you had in 2024 and hopefully have an even better 2025?
Yeah, so I think it predates to even Worlds. Like I think it predates to the beginning of our off-season process in 2020, at the end of 2023, right? So I think when we were building that iteration of the roster, we knew that we had like a completely new budget that we had to work with. It was gonna have to be a very, very new roster iteration. And I think when you're in a situation like that, like I want to say like Immortals, where they're constantly on the lower side of like how much they spend on their overall payroll for the teams. Um, it really forced us to ask like a lot of these like really intricate questions, like, hey, if the league is already relatively ranked based on pay, as in historically we've seen teams that spend more perform better on average. If we use the same formula, approach things the same way, we're probably going to end up like Immortals. Rest in peace. So we really have to like think outside of the box. So I think what we did was we basically put like labels on every single player. We obviously did our scouting and everything, but it was basically like already star player, uh, stable, upside, no upside, all these labels. And we just try to go for as many super high upside players as possible. Um, so in our eyes, we think Quid, Meech, and Sniper were those like super high upside players. So obviously Sniper panned out fantastic. Quid was MVP of spring, and I think for Brandon, with the combination of like some of the things that he was going through personally, we weren't really able to see those heights reach. So obviously we had like a temporary 80 carry situation with Tomo. So I think in the back of our minds, we were always going to see, hey, what are we gonna do about bot lane? Because this is like probably where I think we can use the most improvement because I think Quid and Sniper completely surpassed our expectations, and obviously River is kind of like the cornerstone of the team. Um, so for 80 carry, we were thinking about Tomo. We were thinking about Micha's situation, and we candidly evaluated a lot of options. I think the most interesting roster iteration that we probably discussed this offseason was actually Jojo So I think like JoJo is just like a generational talent. And regardless of how C9 was last year, like I think if you're a competitive League of Legends player or a pro player that has played in North America and you faced JoJo in the mid lane, you can't kind of explain into words like the pressure or the level of play that you're like experiencing. So we were like, how do we get JoJo on our team while keeping Quid? And we actually spoke to Quid about potentially role swapping to AD carry. So I think that was our like superstar roster. It was JoJo playing mid, Quid playing AD carry, and I think for Quid it was like such a large decision for him to like completely pivot his career to a different role. And although he was like open to it for a very long time, I think to his credit, like I think not giving him another shot to like prove himself once again as like North America's like elite mid laner would kind of be a disservice to him. So while we did have like really large ambitions to kind of put that like Exodia roster together, at the end of the day, I think we're very, very excited about what we ended up with. And I know JoJo's like, kind of tweeting and, having his time of the day in the LEC. So I think things worked out. So, I think when that iteration fell through, like we saw Energy leaving the league, and obviously that opened a lot of possibilities, right? I think FBI was like a no-brainer for us at that point. Like we already have two import slots. Um, I did look at some like um, South American AD carries just because now you're able to have some combination of the import rule where you're able to have one South American player. But uh, I mean, FBI was a part of the league. Our 100 Thieves previously. He brought us our first trophy. He's, made it to Worlds multiple times, had an insane run with energy. So I think in terms of his like ceiling and the base that he provides to like a very, very young team, I think it was like just like an undeniable decision at that point. So that decision tree was quite easy. And then I think the other I guess roster change people were curious about was Ayla. I think
Definitely.
the parallel that I draw to Ayla is like Asuna in Valorant, where we internally view them as like very hardworking, very capable individuals. But I think the community sentiment around these two players in specific is just like there's so much hate that I really want to do my best to kind of continue supporting these guys. So um, like I said, we were evaluating all options for bot lane. I think that's just something that we do. So we told Momo and Ayla very, very early on, hey, World just concluded, I believe it was like a week or 2 weeks after. We told them we're gonna evaluate all options with bot lane. Obviously, I don't want to tell you guys super late, be super slimy, and then like you guys don't end up having a team. So we communicated to them very, very early on that we were exploring options, gave them the ability to discuss to other teams. Um, and I think when we ran through support options, there was quite a lot. And I know Shopify discussed a South American player recently as well. We were looking into Huhi, which is like a really obvious one, right? Like, hey, Huhi and FBI played together. They brought us our first trophy. They have pre-existing synergy on energy. He's been on our org so many times. I think we were looking into like Zazal, uh, and even like Isles. Obviously, these people were all like not all of them were free agents, but we were just doing our research, right, just to see how Bill compared relatively to the league, because I think it's pretty clear that like Busio, um, I would say Busio, like Core JJ and Balkan are currently considered like the top three
Mhm.
in North American support. So we did our research, and I think Bill like continued to surprise us. And that was like why we ended up going with him in the previous offseason is like to the fans and community sentiment, like there are a couple plays that looks like really random, but like what player isn't gonna have that?
Oh, of
I don't
course.
think I don't think you're defined by your best play or your worst play. It's like an average or level of consistency that you bring to the team. And when we looked at his plays on average, they were very good. Obviously incredibly hard worker, fits our culture extremely well. So after our coaches did our research, we were like, yeah, let's give Bill another shot. Like he deserves it. So yeah, I mean, super easy off season for us. Like, obviously, we had a crazy situation with JoJo. That could have been kind of interesting, but yeah, it was just like two decision trees that we need to make in bot lane, and we were pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you put it that way, it sounds short and sweet and easy. I'm sure it was, obviously very crazy, a lot going into it. I know just another thing, talking about the craziness of this offseason as well, and something people are definitely going to have questions about is obviously the whole situation, the elephant in the room with the provisional guest slot, how all that affected things. Did that complicate things, make things more difficult? Did that, make either existing players and staff a little bit wary about committing to 100 Thieves? Did that make potential players a little bit hesitant? Can you talk about how that maybe did or didn't make things harder for you?
Yeah, I think it definitely made things super difficult. Um, my mantra when it comes to roster building is always like having some big picture or high level vision of like, can we take iterations of this roster and improve on it over the course of the year so that we have like some kind of core that we're building around, right? Because like you can't build like a winning roster or even like a compelling storyline when you're constantly changing players in and out. Like not even just from a competitive standpoint, but just from a product like entertainment standpoint. Like how can the community engage with a product that is constantly changing that they're not really in tune with, right? So when we structure these contracts, we always have some like multi-year deal, right? And all of these players were on multi-year deals, and thankfully that a lot of their terms ended at the end of 2025. So it kind of lined up with the provisional guest situation, but now we're in this really like murky situation where none of our contracts run past 2025, right? So, let's say like Riot continues to work with us in the LTA and we continue operating the league as a provisional guest partner or some, other like whether it's a permanent spot or a semi-permanent spot, I'm not really sure yet. Uh, that would put us back in square one, right? So I think that was primarily the thing that I was really concerned about was I don't want to start every year fresh. I don't want to have to like start the offseason from scratch. It's just really hard, right? Because like let's say you're trying to recruit a top talent in anything. It's like the first question that they obviously care about is, the compensation and the package, but items 2 and 3 is like who else is on the team? Right? And when you don't have an existing contract to work off with, it's like you can't really say you have committed players yet. So I think that's the main thing that I'm going into 2026 thinking about. It's like as soon as I finalize the situation with Riot in terms of our continuation in the LTA, we're keeping all of our players and their agents like up to speed. But yeah, like I said, we love this iteration of the roster. Like we definitely recognize a core that we want to continue building on. So we're doing our best to keep like all parties like informed. And as soon as we have like a definitive decision internally, um, yeah, we're gonna work on the players and their agents to kind of like renew and continue their deals.
Yeah.
And for some of them, we already have like prearranged amounts. So the negotiation part is like already done. So now we're just waiting on like 100 Thieves and Riots to kind of figure things out on the back end.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's actually super interesting and a really kind of cool point. And then I guess kind of bringing those first two things we talked about together, because I know you said like, hey, we had some easy decisions, we have some great players, some guys we wanted to bring back, but then talking a little bit about that complication of stuff as well. Do you think or know that any players maybe ever considered leaving? Did you have to struggle with other teams, fighting for your players since you had players who were doing so well and have such high ceilings and stuff like that? Was that ever anything that added into this offseason, like maybe somebody's going to leave or maybe somebody's going to get stolen away by another team or something like that?
I think the main players I was concerned about was Sniper, Quid, and River. Obviously, Quid and Sniper were already on the team on their contract, right? So there was no fear there.
Mm-hmm.
I think my only real concern was around River. Obviously, he was a top two, top three jungler this entire year. And it's really, I guess it's just really easy when the other teams aren't making changes, right? Like when we're getting into offseason, like we spent months in advance kind of like going over projected roster changes. So like I look at TL's roster, they're not changing. FlyQuest, the two teams that finished above us, FlyQuest, roster not changing. Right? So now it's like really easy. It's like you go to River, you negotiate, you do a pitch, come back. Our brand is really cool. We do a lot of really, really cool shit. Um, and obviously these rookies, they're panning out. And come on, like where else are you gonna go? It kind of like turns out like that, right? So I think when it does become scary is when a player like Inspired, for example, if you're retired. right? Or like a player like Umti, for example, if he retired, like, or he transferred to an LCK team, I think that's when things would get really scary, right? Because then there's two teams to worry about. So
Mhm.
I think thankfully there was no major changes from the super high ranked teams above us. And I would say even Cloud9, their like entire brand is built around Blabber at this point. I guess their like roster mantra. So yeah, I don't think there was really a jungle scare. And then yeah, FBI I think was all we also got super lucky. Like again, you go to FireQuest, it's like are you benching like one of North America's like best rookie 80 carries that have come
Right.
out of the pipeline? Probably not. Um, Yun performed extremely well this year. Probably not. And then I think the only scare was like Cloud9, and they committed to Sven super early. So again, made our lives super easy. Like this was like one of the most easy off seasons. Like I feel like if I pick someone from like Reddit with like zero experience and they were like build me a roster, like I feel like they could have done it. It was really just that easy. I mean, there was like layers of like preparation and still going over like crazy scenarios. Like the role swap with JoJo. We actually spoke to Fudge about role swapping. Um, so like we did explore every single possible iteration because like we don't like leaving any doors unopened, right? I think that's like a disservice to the fans and a disservice to like the LT and the product. So, you know, that was the process, but the end result, like I think any redditor could have done it. So, yeah,
That's a
it was
great
actually really
quote.
easy. Yeah, yeah.
But no, I think that's hilarious because just when I was thinking about and preparing for this, I'm like, man, off season sounds so insane. There's so many moving parts, so much stress, hangover, all this stuff, and then when you put it that way, obviously, I know you're exaggerating probably a little bit, but it is definitely funny as well. One thing I was a little bit curious about was how Worlds. I know you guys said like even going into Worlds and months before, you're already preparing for the off season and thinking about all these different things. Did making it to Worlds does that in some ways cause a disadvantage for you guys? Because I'm sure the teams have already been eliminated, they're already starting things, getting underway. Maybe players are already kind of moving and changing a little bit. Did that make things harder or more difficult for you in any way, or was that not really an issue for you guys at all?
Yeah, I mean, again, all the players were on 2-year contracts, like so like I was never really concerned. Like I said, only person that was on a 1-year contract was River. So he's someone him and his agent I've been talking to the entire year about renewing. So like it wasn't like a oh my god, we're gonna make worlds like now we need to panic and like we need to like accelerate these conversations. Like no, we've been talking about it the entire year, so like we were always pretty prepared. Um yeah, I mean I would like to give ourselves some level of like kudos or pat ourselves in the back, but like honestly, it was like I think most of the hard work was already done in the previous year's off season, where like we kind of anticipated the market kind of correcting itself, where salaries would readjust, um, and we kind of renegotiated everyone's salaries at that period. So yeah, our jobs this off season around was like it was super easy.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
But
obviously
yeah,
that's good to hear, and
yeah.
hopefully that will pan out obviously on the Rift and stuff this year as well. With I'm sure you guys having heightened expectations and all that stuff. I did want to talk obviously a little bit about the one change that you did make, a little bit more about FBI. I know you said it was a no-brainer. You're super excited for him, all this stuff. But now him coming into the team being that one change, how do you think he is going to be kind of the change 100 Thieves needed? How do you think he is going to change things and make the team better on and off the Rift for next season, and hopefully help you reach your goals and stuff like that?
Yeah, so let's just look at 100 Thieves in 2024 and like I guess like I'll just pull up some like random statistic really early on, but like as an example in Spring Split, I think we were known as at a certain point during the regular season, we were actually the bloodiest team in the world. Like more than all LPL teams, and that was like a crazy statistic. Like we love to scrap, we love to fight. And yeah, it's just a team of young guns that just like to like fight over everything. And like when you have that mindset, you're not scared to lose games, you're not scared to like look bad. Like that's what's gonna happen. Then we love that. Like that's the environment our players thrived in. But with that, we also had, I think, the worst or the second to worst early game in the entire league. I think there were like very few games where we had a goal lead at 15. Like it was just like actually ridiculous how behind we were every single game. And I don't know if people remember our spring games. We were down like 4K 15 minutes, down 6K 15 minutes, and we somehow always found a way to like win the game. It was like insane. Like the number of like upsets that Split had and the number of like comebacks. It was just like really unprecedented. Where if you had like a veteran roster that's like they're playing chess, right? It's like you're already like behind 6K, 15 minutes, like both teams make like veteran level moves and the game's over. Like you had too big of a deficit. And that's how they look at it. But the rookies, the young guns, they know how to like claw and fight their way back in. So you know there was always that. But we always knew that our early game and our laning was like a huge problem. So with Meech, like his team fighting was really solid. And that's why we picked him up. But obviously he's very new, so his laning, especially at an LCS level or LTA level, is something that we really need to work on. I think with Tomo, he was just more experienced. And if you looked at his picks of like Misfortune and Ziggs, which were like primarily the picks that he really thrived on, he brought like a really stable early game experience around bottom. And that provided like a very stable way for us to enter into the fight situations without being like one or two items down every single fight. Um, so now we come to FBI. How is he going to elevate the team? Well, FBI used to have one of the best laning in the league. Like I don't know if you want to go back to like 2020 and 2021, but even when like Doublelift went to Worlds and like that was like last year before 100 Thieves, he said FBI is the best bot laner North America's seen in a very long time, and he had some of the best early game stats. So combine that with his experience and his moments of brilliance that he's still able to demonstrate to this day. Now you have a very stable early game to work off of, and just honestly a star player that has a ceiling to make a very deep run at Worlds. So in all means, it's just like an upgrade, right? Like more stable early game, more veteran, very good team fighting. Like it was just like everything we could ask for from a player. And it's funny because Vic used to be one of the younger players that we used to work with, and he was like the kid when he first joined Under Thieves. Like he was this fresh guy from like Australia, and we shipped him over. And now like the dynamics kind of switched, where like Sniper is that guy now, and like FBI is more the veteran. And like in scrims, like Vic says stuff like, "Dude, Snipes, when I was like your age, I would be carrying this game. It's like, why aren't you carrying me?" It's the banter's amazing,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's been a great addition.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That sounds like a great environment as well to hopefully have those guys kind of growing in and stuff. And then I know obviously you spoke a little bit about, you hear it, you see it, the fans maybe trepidation or caution a little bit with bringing Ayla back into the year. Is that something else where you think, bringing in FBI is also going to help Ayla, look a little bit better, have a little bit more consistent performances, stuff like that, just kind of shoring up that bot lane overall?
Yeah, I think one thing about FBI is like we knew FBI and Huhi like very well from having worked with them before. And I think what FBI really needs in a lane partner is someone that like will drive them towards perfection. And I think Ayla just has that like level of work ethic. Obviously like imagine you're Bill, right? And you're put into LCS, and your first AD carry that you play with at the LT level with 100 Thieves is Meech, completely new AD carry. Now, I don't know if you have any context around like people in the bot lane, but it's a duo, right? And you either look good together or you look bad together. And obviously they struggled in early game for a very long time. So if this was Europe, there would already be like Discord messages leaking of like one guy shit talking the other and like asking the owner to get one of these players kicked. But like Bill had such an like wavering level of loyalty towards Brandon, on like an unwavering work ethic. Like we saw it. Like saw how much work he was putting in. We saw like actually how much he struggled. Like Bill was like, "This is the level I want to play at, but like I'm not able to be there yet." And obviously it's super frustrating for him. But he dealt with it with such poise that like I was honestly impressed. I've worked with so many players over the like years. There are so many bot laners that would like complain about their lane mate, and you see a lot of like changes in the bot lane due to that. So
Mhm.
um, I think Bill went through a lot this year, and I think he was really excited about playing with a fellow Australian that has frankly just accomplished more than him, and kind of the relation like the dynamics kind of switched, right? Like where now he's like being shown the ropes, and obviously has an incredible work ethic. So yeah, it's a great working relationship so far, and we're curious to see how it pans out.
Yeah, I actually think that's really cool to hear, talking about the stuff of Ayla because, there are reasons to maybe be worried if your duo's not doing well and stuff. Like, that's your future. That's how you look. That's your livelihood potentially on the line as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like a really got to be a great sign of like awesome character and stuff and just somebody you'd want to have, I'm sure, in your environment and in your team and stuff like that. So that's actually
Mhm.
really cool. I think that's something people will be excited to hear about. I think one more thing I did want to talk about is obviously Sniper. I know you talked a little bit about how Jojo Pune is this like generational prospect, generational talent. He's developed awesome, super excited for him to go do whatever he's going to do in the LEC now. But there's some people and a lot of people out there who want Sniper to be that or follow a similar trajectory or become that. And I'm sure you guys have high hopes for him and everything. How important is it for you guys to set Sniper up for success, not only now, but into the future to help his kind of growth and achieve that full potential? And do you feel like you have a roster in place that can not only be successful, obviously you want to win games, but can also set all these players up for future success and, have Sniper become that generational talent that we're talking about in the future too?
Yeah. So easy way to point out how much conviction we have around Sniper is actually before we signed Ayla to this roster, obviously Busio's contract ended. And I was talking to Busio and his agent before, FlyQuest picked him up with a much, much better offer, which I don't blame him at all for taking. But I told him and his agent, like, either the LCS will no longer exist or we will no longer exist in the LCS. It is like the day we would move on from you as support. So that's how much conviction I had in like Allen. I think we just had like a middling year with like Bjerg randomly retiring in the middle and like us having to make a bunch of roster swaps. But I knew like Busia was the future of supports in North America, and that's how much conviction I had. And that kind of goes the same as Sniper. Like when we were doing this rebuild, and I was talking to Grayson, I was like, my only request when it comes to building this roster, obviously we were making decisions together, but like basically like the ultimatum that I pushed on him, like you don't get to say in this is like Sniper is our starting top laner. And Grayson was like, "Are you sure about that?" And I think to his credit, like a player like Someday, Licorice, they were all available at like historically low market rates, right? Like these
Sure.
players normally cost like $1 million a year, and we're looking at much, much like very, very comparable. Like them and Sniper were very comparable in their salary offerings, right? So it's just like, wow, we can get those levels of players at this rate now. Like, are we sure we should take a risk? And I'm really glad that we did. Um, Sniper was really bad. Like I think when we scouted him, he was like hard stuck Diamond 2 in Korea like that Korean boot camp leading up to spring, and Grayson was like, Joe, are you sure about this? And to be honest, I wasn't sure. But I think we had to make that bet because it's like we already invested like 2 or 3 years into this guy. Like we've seen what he's been capable of at like the tier 3, tier 2 level. So we know he has a ceiling for it. And he is like, yeah, like if you wanted to like product a superstar, like you can't ask for my marketing team and like my they probably love him. Riot probably loves him too. He's amazing on stage. Like none of his stuff is manufactured. He just genuinely has like an interesting, funny superstar personality. So yeah, like I would say from a competitive standpoint, obviously he's very, very good, has his moments, but like I think like JoJo and Masu, they're a lot more consistent. Like when they first started as superstars, like they were always really dominating in certain aspects. Where I think Sniper just like surprises people. Like everyone's like, oh, he's bad in scrims, and then he goes on stage and solo kills random people. So I think he's someone that thrives in front of an audience, thrives in front of like an actual match situation. Um, so he's a little different in that sense, but yeah, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like he is the pillar that we're gonna try to build our League of Legends brand around for as long as we exist. Because obviously, I hope League of Legends is a game that is around forever, but I think Sniper is young enough where he can be that core player for a very, very, very long time. Um, so I think him and Quid are the main players that I'm looking to really build the 100 Thieves League of Legends narrative for at least the near future. And yeah, that's the level of fiction I would like to see fans have in those players as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. Now, yeah, obviously, I would love to see him continue to develop because, like you said, he's so fun, he's so exciting, he's so interesting, and
Yeah.
the scene just needs more of that. And then finally, I guess to wrap things up, I'm sure I know a lot of what your answer is already going to be because you sound so excited, you sound so ready to go. But how excited are you ready for the 2025 season? How excited are you for this roster specifically? And then what are some of your goals and expectations for this year? What do you guys want to accomplish?
Um, are we like saying from like a brand case or like a business case or?
Whatever you want to throw out there. What are you thinking right now? The season's a couple days away. What's in your mind?
What's in my mind? I think if we lose to DSG, the season's chalked. No, but like obviously, I think DSG as our opening match is like really cool. I don't know how Sniper drew that, but playing Abadage, playing Huhi, playing Toast, playing like and then like Grayson used to be on DSG. I think that's just really cool. I think Toast reminds me of Matt in a lot of ways of like a content creator that goes to like gaming organization like CEO and like you're following his journey. So. I don't know. That feels like a complete 360. So that feels like really, really cool to see, and I think that's like a really, really exciting match. So those are one of the things that I'm very excited about. Um, I think also, uh, when Riot introduced the LTA, I think one of the things that they pitched was like a consolidated Americas where we can really take advantage of, a congregated viewership of different like regions and cultures. And I think the first Americas tournament it's really going to be an indicator of whether or not that initiative is successful. So I really hope that our team finishes top four. Like I'm looking at the bracket, like I don't know how we don't make top four. Again,
Hopefully.
should never say that, but if we make that event and we go for the international tournament of Americas, like I think that will be a really cool experience. I think like League of Legends in North America could use more of that, or just America in general could use more of that. Um, and yeah, I think the goalposts are kind of the same. Like I think from the backside, like we always want to be top four domestically, and we always want to qualify for as many international events as we can. I want to say we're aiming for trophies, but I think while those ambitions still exist, I think TL and FlyQuest are obviously very, very strong teams. So I think in the short term, it's just like let's just solidify ourselves as the top three team for now, and then if we can make improvements to catch up to those other teams, then I would say those are like the reach goals for the year.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure you guys are super, super excited. I know I'm excited. I know the fans are excited. And I appreciate you taking your time out of the day. I know it's a crazy time with the season about ready to kick off. But thank you. I think you gave a ton of great answers, insight, and hopefully, gave people what they were looking for as far as how this offseason went for 100 Thieves in 2024, or like whatever, between 2024 and 2025, and what to
Yeah,
expect for this new season.
yeah. Thanks so much for having me. As always, make sure you guys tune in. Our match is on the 26th, 1 p.m. PST. So I'm looking forward to it. Join us. It's going to be a lot of fun.